Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to our channel. Here, this is the video of earlier video continuation, and here in this particular video, as I shared, this was second round of discussion where they have deep dive into mostly scenario-based kind of question. So, without further ado, let's enter into the video and have a discussion. The first question was, can you briefly walk me through your background in DevOps and what are some of your achievements so far? So, if you talk about while achievements, make sure you need to be prepared. And let's say if you don't have that like achievements, then you can obviously point out any pointer like wherever you contributed more to certain project or you got some appreciation like that. You can express that same thing. And the next question was, let's say you are deploying a application where the production system has been running smoothly for some months. Suddenly after the deployment you noticed that the system performance has significantly degraded. How would you about to identify the cause for this particular issue? In this particular case, we need to first make sure to monitor the logs, and by using Prometheus and Grafana in our project, we used to use that particular thing only, and where we will get to know the like CPU, memory metrics, and if there is any strike in the cloud, then we will get to know that. And we can also compare the previous deployments, like if there is any changes, uh, like we can use kubectl rollout history, or else if it is code difference, git diff dot, it will no dot, just git diff, it will get a difference, like what is the difference between the current and previous deployment. And we need to make sure to compare the uh, analyze the application logs, as I said, like by using uh, Kibana, like ELK, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, where it is a centralized logging tool. It will check logs, and we need to revert to the old like version of code if it is unnecessary. And yeah, I think these are the some troubleshooting steps we need to do. And moving to the next question, imagine if you are tasked with setting up a CI/CD pipeline for a project that has both front end and back end components, and what steps would you take to ensure the pipeline works seamlessly for both, and how would you handle the dependencies between those particular two, front end and back end? In this case especially, we need to create a dedicated pipelines for front end part as well as back end part. In my case, I explained with respect to the Jenkins, and like whatever your pipeline should be, you can explain in that case, like whether it might be GitLab CI/CD or GitHub Actions. And we need to use a shared artifact repository where it will manage dependencies between them. We can use Nexus as a artifact manager, and we need to perform the automated testing for especially backend. We need to perform API tests and dashed, and dashed will comes for both front end and back end. And especially for a front end, we can perform a JUnit as a testing tool. And we can use Docker Compose on the Kubernetes for front end testing before the deployment part. And we can manage, I mean, we can set up like there is a parallel deployment where the deployment will happen sequentially based on the interdependencies, we can say. especially in this case Bartlett dependency was the more suitable. And the next question was, we all know about containerization, where there is a scenario where you will choose to use a Docker in the production environments, and you might choose uh, not to use that in your production environment. I think you got this particular question. Let me rephrase it. We all know about containerization where Docker is a containerization platform, and the question was, can you explain a scenario where you would choose to use a Docker in the production environment, and when you might not to choose, especially in which cases you will use the Docker, and in which cases you are not going to prefer a Docker. Especially we can use a Docker when you need some portability, scalability, we can say isolation. Docker itself, it is a isolated platform, right? Let's say for example, if you wanted to deploy a microservices, um, where each services run on its own container, in that case we can opt for Docker. We can avoid Docker when uh, the performance is critical, high performance databases, or else when there is a licensing restrictions is applied. In that cases we can avoid Docker. If you know any other scenarios, please let me know in the comments. And the next question was, if you are working on your microservices based architecture and one of the services has started failing during load testing, it works fine in isolation, but when scaled, it starts to timeout. What would you approach troubleshooting this particular thing? Especially this is a troubleshooting question, where first thing we can check the logs and metrics for request and response times we will get to know, and we can analyze the resources limits like a CPU, a memory, and if needed we can increase the limits also, and we can check the database performance as well, where if needed we can optimize the queries, and especially load test tools like JMeter and JEager, OpenTelemetry. These are some uh, tracking tools. Okay, and we can check by maintaining a auto scaling thresholds, and later we can use that particular tools, and we will load test again. Then we will get to know like where exactly it was failing, or else these are the some troubleshooting steps we need to follow. And moving to the next question, suppose you are using a Kubernetes for orchestration, and you noticed that a particular pod is not starting as expected. What steps would you take to diagnose the issue, and what tools would you use in this particular process? First thing, we will check pod logs by using kubectl logs and name of the pod, space name of the pod, and we can describe the pod, kubectl describe pod and name of the pod, to check if any events are there, and we can check if images exists, like kubectl get pod and kubectl get events. This will get the image information, and we can also look for node resources like by using kubectl top nodes, where it will looks for Kubernetes node resources, and we can use the debug command also, kubectl debug, where it will debug using uh, ephemeral containers will be there. It will debug by using but that particular thing. This is the some uh, diagnosing steps. And the next question was, imagine you are dealing with a high traffic website. how would you scale your infrastructure to meet the increased demand during seasonal peaks, and how would you automate the scaling process? Definitely, a first thing will come into picture was auto scaling. We can enable auto scaling if it is AWS service. We can enable there is a auto scaling groups will be there, and in Kubernetes there is a horizontal pod autoscaler where it will increases the number of pods with the same system details in horizontal. If it is vertical, then uh, adding more space, RAM, storage for the existing machine only. But in horizontal pod autoscaler, it will add a new instance with the same specification. Horizontal was the preferred one, and we can optimize the database performance, and we can implement load balancing. um, AWS load balancer will be there, and yeah, I think these are the some steps we need to follow. And moving to the next question, if you are working with a team that use a mix of cloud and on-premise resources, how would you set up a CI/CD pipeline that works across both environments while ensuring that the configurations are consistent? Okay. Um, I mean, here in this particular job role, they also expected some on-premise experience. So I think this is question based on considering that particular opinion only. Okay. First of all, we can use uh, hybrid, uh, like especially for hybrid cloud, we can use like it will support GitLab CI/CD or else Jenkins also, and we need to make sure um, secret managers should be used where the secrets are stored in AWS secret manager. And if you are using GitLab CI CD, we need to use we need to set up your runners with both the enrollments. So that is the one thing, key thing we need to notice while we are using GitLab CI CD. There is a runner where that will communicates with the command line interface, how Jenkins is communicating with the command line interface, right? Likewise here, GitLab CI also the runners will be there, and here while setting up that particular runner, we need to set up the runner in the on-premise as well as cloud environment. That is the like key thing we need to note. And the remaining all the setups are same, where it will maintain a same consistency till all the integration and production level. And moving to the next question, DevOps isn't just about the tools, it's all about a culture. Can you give me an example of a time when you had a collaboration closely with the developers or operations team to solve a problem? How do you facilitate communication and ensure that everyone was on the same page? Yeah. I have explained a scenario where I have really faced in the project where we are working on some optimizing and applications deployment strategy in the architecture level, and where the development team faced the some frequent downtime issue. By collaborating with them, I introduced like deployment models, especially canary model, to reduce the downtime. And we clearly noted down there is a almost 60% of downtime reduction. That is where we can make sure the communication is facilitated among the team, and it will make sure we are on the same page. And moving to the further question, have you faced a situation where a release had a bug in production that affected users, and how did you handle the situation, and what steps do you take to prevent such issues in the future? Especially, yes, the first thing was, yes, I have uh, like faced this particular situation. We need to take some steps. The first one is we need to roll back the deployment by using kubectl rollout undo, where it will roll back the deployment using the Kubernetes, and we can analyze the particular logs and fix the issue. That is the one key thing. And we can introduce automated ingress testing. Sorry, it is automated regression testing. What exactly the regression test does was, it will finds a bugs in each and every phase of the software development lifecycle, and also we can implement future flags that can we can enable some new features. It will detect, or else if we disable also, it will detect by implementing that future flags. And moving to the next question, let's say if you are tasked with provisioning infrastructure for a new project, the client requires a highly available and cost efficient solution that can scale automatically. You are considering both AWS and Azure as a cloud platform. What factors would you influence your decision to choose one over the other, and what would you design the architecture? Like, sorry, how would you design the architecture? If we see as a cloud service provider comparison, AWS was a better serverless support, where the Lambda and the ECS supports serverless functions. And when we come to the Azure, it will majorly like good to choose for like hybrid cloud integrations. And while designing, we can maintain the availability in multiple availability zones, and auto scaling. Terraform we can use as a IAC tool, and we can use load balancers, and we can say these are the like major services we can use this particular thing while designing the architecture. And if you want to explain more about the architecture, you can explain. That is actually a good way of practice. Okay, due to the time constraint, I'm not like clearly briefing about this. I will plan to do a dedicated video for that if it is possible. And how do you design, next question was, how do you design a multiple region architecture to ensure high availability and disaster recovery in the cloud? Whenever it comes with the disaster recovery, we make sure there is a multi-region setup should be there. And we need to we can use AWS multi availability zone, where it will replicate. We can use any database like RDS database, and we can back up the things in S3. We can say cross region replication. We can use Python automation here to perform this, I mean to achieve this particular task. And the next question, you have integrated security scanning into your CI/CD pipeline, and the scan detects a vulnerability in a dependency you are using. The fix isn't trivial, and it will require some time to implement. How do you prioritize this issue without disturbing the deployment velocity? Yeah, in this space we can use, there is a tool. Basically it's not a tool, it's a sequence of steps need to be followed. First of all, we need to access the severity of the vulnerability. There is a CVSS score, where common vulnerability scoring system, where that will tells the severity of the vulnerability. If it is something high critical, then and it is exploitable and available in public, then it should be like take a implement I mean we need to take a immediate action to patch that particular vulnerability. And if it is something low risk or else low severity CVSS score, then we can schedule that particular vulnerability patch in the upcoming sprint like that. And in that particular severity like understanding about that particular severity, we will get to know the CVSS score and what is the exploitability range and what is the scope of the vulnerability and impact of the vulnerability and what are some mitigation options, all those things. And we need to communicate the same thing with the stakeholders for a security team especially and development team and especially the product owners, customers, compliance. And we can implement temporary mitigations if possible by maintaining RBAC, role based access controls, we can say least privileges, and we can segregate TA networks, and these are like temporary steps we can check. And yeah, I think these are just some troubleshooting or else steps we are going to take. And one more thing, we need to make sure there is a continuous monitoring system need to be set up, and where we need to set up some tools also where it will checks in the real time and provides a like results in the sheets. And like based upon all this particular data, we can decide like what is the further steps is going to be taken. The next question was, how do you handle secrets management within the CI/CD pipeline? We can use AWS Secret Manager, and if it is Terraform or Kubernetes, we can use HashiCorp Vault, and within Kubernetes Secret Manager also there. We can also use environment variables. This is how we can manage. And how would you configure Docker to automatically restart containers if they fail? We can like within the Docker compose.yml file, we can set up a restart is equal to always in Docker. I mean, whenever it says restart equals to always, then whenever the container fails, that will restart. And what is the difference between, next question was, what is the difference between copy and add command in a Docker file? Copy command, basically it will copy only particular files, and add command is it will copies and extracts that particular achiever like files, we can say. That is the major difference. And the next question was, how do you roll back Kubernetes deployment to a previous version? There is an option, there is a command actually, kubectl roll out history deployment and deployment name of the deployment. It will list the all the like what are the past revisions of the deployment, and then we can roll back to a previous stable version by using command kubectl rollout undo deployment and deployment name. And we need to mention the version also, like -2 and hyphen revision equals to, and we need to mention the version number. There it will get. And also we can verify the rollback by using kubectl get pods and kube describe deployment and deployment name. It will get the application details as well as whether the rollback resolve the issue or not. Also, this is going to help the more information. And the next question was, how do you secure your communication between the services within the Kubernetes? First thing, we can use we can expose the services externally, like without needing a separate load balancer for each services. We can expose that, and we can enable path based or some host based routing, and we can use HTTP connections, and we can use load balancing and traffic control across the multiple backend services. That is how we can secure communication between the services within Kubernetes. And next question is, how would you secure a AWS VPC with the public and private subnets using a Terraform? We can use there is a network policies, especially for isolation purpose, and it will restrict the pod to pod communication with the network policy, and the policy is written in YAML, and we can enable a role based access controls or back, we can say, and we can, yeah, I think these are the steps. And also we can like use the encryption models like TLS, and it will encrypt the, like, whatever the link is there between the services. And next question was, what is AWS Lambda function, and how would you use it in a serverless architecture? Basically, a AWS Lambda function is, it's like we can run the code with irrespective of infrastructure provisioning. This particular Lambda functions will runs the code, and it will manages the servers or infrastructure required, and whether I mean, if it is a serverless architecture, this is how the Lambda functions helpful to, like, it just reduces the human efforts or our whatever. Let's say if there is a huge traffic in the website, if we opt for Lambda service, then Lambda function, then it will we don't need to concern about how much infrastructure is required. This particular function will automatically scales and manages the infrastructure. And the next question was, how do you secure sensitive data, example like API keys, passwords within the AWS? We can use secret manager, where it will manages a secrets within the enrollment. And one more thing, there is a enrollment variables also, and while creating IAM roles, assign a minimal required permissions to services instead of hard coding the keys or credentials. And KMS, there is a one service, key management service. It will encrypt the sensitive data at when it was in rest, not in transit. It will support only in what it was in rest position. And the next question was, how do you manage a state in Terraform, especially when working in a team? We can use remote state storage. We can use S3 as a storage with dynamic DynamoDB logging, where it will maintains some state it will prevent actually the state conflicts within the team. And Terraform, make sure to use the Terraform plan before applying the changes, where it will show what exactly you are doing, what it touches that particular Terraform file. And make sure to have version control state files, where it will maintain a backups, and you can use Git for tracking that particular version. And the next question was, what is the purpose of Terraform plan and how would you use that particular thing? Terraform plan, it will shows and executes plan before applying changes. Terraform apply, I think I said earlier. Sorry, I think Terraform plan we need to do before apply. And Terraform exactly shows the execution plan before applying or changing the infrastructure in the real time. It will basically helps to identify um, some unintended changes. Okay, it will let us know like what exactly you are doing with your concern only, then we can apply Terraform apply we can do. And how would you handle a configuration drift in an infrastructure managed by Ansible? Generally, the configuration drift is, let's say, if you write a Terraform file uh, in the development phase, and you tested there like Terraform file by using some snake or some Trevi tool, you found nothing like vulnerable or something. And when you go to the, I mean, you can use the CSPM also, Cloud Posture Security Manager. And when you go to the deployment phase while you are running that particular Terraform file, then it was getting some like vulnerability. Okay, what exactly it happened was, you may change, I mean, you or your team may change it something within the UI, I mean from console itself. So because of that we are getting some vulnerability, or that is what exactly the configuration drift, the changes which is happened in between the testing phase, after the testing and before the deployment. That is what exactly. And the next question was, what is the difference between Ansible playbook and Ansible commands? Generally, the Ansible playbook is for a quick and one-time task that can be checking system update or some modifying a single file like that. But Ansible playbook, when you need some structured automated process, such as deploying infrastructure or else configuring multiple servers at a time, we need to use a YAML where there is a sequence of steps in that will automatically performs, and no manual intervention is required in between. But in Terraform, in Ansible command, then it will need a, for each and every command we need to run manually. But in Ansible playbook, once we run the playbook, then it will automatically performs the sequence of tasks which is written as per the YAML playbook, like Ansible playbook which is written in YAML language. The next question was, you need to update a application running in Kubernetes. How, but you want to avoid downtime during the deployment. How do you achieve this particular thing? To achieve a zero downtime deployment, we need to make sure to follow a rollback updates. Like those are the recommended strategies, like blue green and canary, where in blue green, if we use the blue green, there is a deployment in the new version, let's say green version, and route the traffic using a services or else some ingress. And if the deployment is successful, switch the traffic into the green, and if the issue rises, roll back into the blue as it is. That is how the deployment, I mean blue green deployments works. And also we can use the deployment for canary, where we can deploy a small percentage, let's say for example 5 to 10 percentage of traffic into a new version, and we can monitor the performance and error rates in the new like version, and we can gradually shift the percentage of traffic to the new version, and we can check if it is stable or not. uh, that is how the canary deployment model can be helpful. And The next question, you are tasked with setting up a monitoring for a multi-cloud infrastructure. What tools would you use and why? We can use Prometheus plus Grafana, where it will collect metrics and it shows in your dashboards by using Grafana. And we can use Datadog, where it is a software as a service SaaS-based monitoring tool for majorly used for cloud integrations. And in cloud service providers like AWS, there is a CloudWatch, and in Azure there is a Azure Monitor, and we can use those cloud native monitoring solutions also. And in a large scale production environment, how would you automate a testing and validation of infrastructure changes before they are applied in the live environment? Especially in this case, we are going to use IAC tool like Terraform, where infrastructure as a code, we can use that particular thing. If you use Terraform, then we can Terraform validate. I mean, after writing a Terraform file, .tf, Terraform validate, where it will check your Terraform syntax and Terraform plan we need to perform, where it will preview the infrastructure changes what is going to be happening, and a Terraform apply we can perform. And we can implement a CI/CD pipeline for infrastructure. We can use GitLab CI/CD or Jenkins, and we can validate the Terraform changes or some Ansible configuration changes by using this particular pipelines itself. And we need to make sure there is a test which is happened before the deployment, like pre-deployment. There is a tools like JUnit, where unit test cases will be performed. Static application security testing can be performed, and those are integrated in the, like, once in the development phase itself. Okay. And what are the some best practices to ensure that your Docker image is secure? We need to make sure there is a continuous integration of tools which maintains, let's say Trivy is basically used for container scanning, Docker image scanning, and for Docker containers also, once the image run, the container will create that container twist lock. There is a one tool, but I haven't worked, but there is a one tool which is majorly popularly used for container scanning. We need to use that kind of tools, and that will maintains, or else provides some kind of results report, which will get to know if there is any vulnerability or security flaws within that. And if we found anything, we can make sure to use, fix that before deploying into a production environment. And the next question was, can you describe a situation where you had a perform a large scale monitoring of infrastructure to the cloud? What challenges did you face, and how did you address particular issues? The scenario was, in my case, I explained, like, migrating some monolithic application to a AWS microservices, where the challenges faced was a downtime risk, where we used blue green deployment to overcome there is no downtime, and data migration complexity also came. We use database management services, AWS DMS, where that will sync the data before cut cover, like, and application compatibility issues, where we can cloud native containerization we adopted by using Docker and Kubernetes, and we maintained, like, we got a concerns about the security and networking also. We have configured the services like AWS VPC security groups and IAM roles on priority, and we for training and documentation purpose, we have maintained a proper what we can say SOPs, and that will help uh, to the upcoming engineers or interns to understand this particular thing. And the next question, how do you handle the versioning within the CI/CD pipeline? The first thing we can use was we can maintain git commit hashes, where it will maintain a versioning. It is the default I think feature of git. And we can also store the version metadata within the S3. That is the like one of the best suited option. And what are the last question was, what steps would you take to implement a blue-green deployment in a Kubernetes environment? As I think I already covered some pointers regarding the blue-green deployment. First of all, we need to deploy two environments. One was blue and one was green environment, where both versions runs simultaneously, but only one gets live traffic and another it will not get a live traffic. And we are going to use a services or ingress controllers to switch the traffic from one, let's say blue to green. And we can test the new version. Let's say green was the new version, without affecting the users. We can run a smoke test. It is not going to affect like any downtime or like that. And then if it is working fine and getting the results as expected, we can change we can gradually shift the traffic from point to point. Yeah, I think these are some pretty good questions, and yeah, we'll meet you in another video. Thank you.